Hello everybody, this is lesson 5.3. So please print out the notes and follow along. So what we've been talking about this unit, they're called polynomials. So here are some definitions that you should write down. So a monomial is a product of constants and or variables. So keep in mind, a constant is just a number. So it's a product of constants and or variables. So for example, a monomial can just be a number. It can be a product of numbers and variables, so something like that. Or it could be even something like this. Okay, a product of constants and or variables. Constants are just numbers. The big thing is that they have to be products. So those are multiplied together, those are multiplied together. And then an overarching name over these is polynomial, and a monomial is, a polynomial is a monomial or a sum of monomials. So for example, if you take two monomials and add them, you have a polynomial. So something like this is a polynomial. And you could also just have one term, and one term, it can be called a polynomial as well. If you want to specifically say what it is, it's called a monomial. Monomial means one term. Okay, another example of a polynomial would be something like this. Okay, this polynomial contains three terms. Just a note about polynomials, because you're about to have to identify some. Polynomials cannot be a quotient. So quotient means that it has division. So if you want to look at these and circle the following ones that are polynomials. So remember, it's a monomial or a sum of monomials. So this is a polynomial. It does not have to just contain one variable. It can contain more than one variable. This is a polynomial. This is a polynomial. These are not polynomials, the first one and the fifth one, because they're actually quotients because of the division. So here it's the division that makes it problematic. And then this one, the term that contains division is what makes it problematic. So these three are not polynomials, and it's because of the division. The quotient there, that has a term that contains division, and that the division there. So what is a term? It's actually the same definition as a monomial, a number, a variable, or a product of numbers and or variables. It can also have a quotient, but that really does not matter to us right now. So a number, a variable, or a product of numbers and or variables. Remember, we have done terms already, and when we were looking at terms, we were talking about terms versus factors. And remember, I said terms are things connected with pluses and minuses, and factors are things that are multiplied together. So give an example of a simplified monomial in one variable. That just means you can only have one variable in there. Monomial means one term. So an example would be something like this. Okay? You only want one variable in there, so you can only have an x. A simplified binomial in one variable. Binomial means two terms. So an example would be something like this. Two terms. Okay, remember, terms are separated by pluses and minuses. You only want one variable in there because that's what it tells you in the directions. And then a simplified trinomial in one variable. Trinomial is three terms. So something like this. Okay, 1, 2, 3 terms. So I'm going to write something on the back, and I want you guys to write it also. There are ways to classify polynomials, and we just went through this. It's classified by the number of terms is one way. So one term is called a monomial. Mono means one. Two terms is called a binomial. Three terms is called a trinomial. And then anything four terms or above is called a polynomial. And these are all generically called polynomial as well. Okay, so you could use polynomial in the place of these generically, or once you get above four terms, we don't have specific names. So those are just called polynomials. So then another way to classify is by degree. The degree is the number of variable factors in the term. So this is the degree of a term. The degree of a polynomial is something different. So for example, if you have something like this is degree 2 because the exponent is a 2. There's 2 factors of x in there. This is degree 4. So it's the number of variable terms in there, and it's because there's 4 x's in here. So when you have something that has multiple variables in it, the number of variable factors in there, there's 2 r's, 1 s, and 4 t's. So you actually have to add all of those exponents up. So it's 2 plus 1 plus 4. So this is actually degree 7. So when there's multiple variables in there, you should be adding the exponents up. Okay? These are all just a single variable, so it's degree 2, degree 4. This is degree of a term. Okay, so I'll explain all of these to you as we go through this one. So when we're looking at polynomials, a lot of times people will write them in what's called descending order. And descending order is the highest exponent to the lowest exponent. So if you look at this thing, if I'm going to write it in descending order, it's the highest exponent term first. So you would have negative 6x to the 4th. That would be your first term in descending order. Then you would have the one with the x cubed by it, so 9x cubed. Then you would have the one with the x squared in it, so 4x squared, and then positive 8x minus 7. This is writing it. Let me just check the signs. This is writing it in descending order. And yes, make sure you get the signs correctly. So if the 7 was negative here, it needs to be negative down here. The 6 was negative up here, it needs to be negative down here. Okay? This is called descending order. It's from highest exponent to lowest exponent. Identify the leading coefficient. The leading coefficient is the coefficient in front of the highest degreed term. This is called the leading term. The leading coefficient is just the number in front. Okay? It's the coefficient of the highest degreed term. So it's the coefficient of the leading term. This is called the leading term when you list it in descending order. Identify the term of the lowest degree. It's actually this one, negative 7. If you just have a constant, it's degree 0, and I'll show you why. So you can have an x to the 0 by here and not change the value of it, because remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. So if it's just a number, it's considered degree 0, because you could put x to the power 0 there and not affect the value of it, because that's just 1. So the term of the lowest degree is negative 7. It's the constant. A constant has degree 0. State the degree of the polynomial. The degree of the polynomial is the exponent on the highest degree term. So it's 4 in this case. So there's a difference between the degree of a term and the degree of a polynomial. The degree of the polynomial, you look at every single term, and it's the degree of the highest exponent. It's the degree of the leading term, basically. It's the highest exponent of all of the terms, is what I'm trying to say. When you are classifying, another way to classify a polynomial is by degree. So if it's degree 0, it's called a constant. And we've already had some examples. For example, 3 is considered degree 0, and it's because you could put an x to the 0 there and not change the value of it. Okay? -2 is degree 0. If you just have a number, it's degree 0, and you could put an x to the 0 by it. Okay? And it's called a constant. If you have a degree 1 polynomial, so an example would be this. Okay? This is degree 1, that's degree 0. The degree of the whole entire polynomial is 1. It's called linear, and we've done a lot of linear equations. If it's degree 2, it's called a quadratic. So an example would be okay, this is a degree 2 polynomial. You look at the highest exponent of any term. And then probably degree 3, you really don't need to know, but it's called a cubic, and you may have heard that before. So an example would be that. Okay, so you can classify it by the number of terms or by the degree of the polynomial. This is just a lot of vocabulary. Take care, everybody.